There is a certain mystery in human relationships that is often misunderstood. One of the most puzzling experiences men go through is when a woman, after causing pain, chooses to return. At first, it defies logic. Why would someone leave, hurt you, and then attempt to find their way back? But if we look deeper, we see that this is not about randomness. It is about human nature, psychology, and the realization that actions have consequences. People do not always know the weight of their decisions in the moment. Emotions drive actions, and when someone walks away, they may feel justified, empowered, or indifferent. But time does something remarkable. It forces reflection. The initial certainty begins to waver, the confidence in their decision weakens, and they begin to question. Was leaving the right choice? Did I truly understand what I was walking away from? The mind plays tricks, and often absence clarifies value in ways that presence never could. There is also the illusion of something better. In the heat of frustration, doubt, or external influence, people convince themselves that there is something greater waiting for them. Perhaps they think they deserve more, or that a better option exists just beyond their reach. But reality has a way of disproving fantasies. They step into the world expecting an upgrade, only to realize that genuine connection, loyalty, and emotional security are not easily replaced. And when they discover this, when the weight of that realization settles in, they begin looking back at what they once had. Emotions are not fixed. They are fluid, ever-changing, shaped by time, experience, and reflection. In the moment, people act based on what they feel, but feelings are not always rooted in truth. They are influenced by impulses, external pressures, and even personal insecurities. This is why people walk away from those who care for them, believing they are making the right choice, only to realize later that they have lost something far greater than they understood at the time. Regret is not immediate. It is a slow realization that comes when the distractions fade, when the initial certainty begins to crumble, and when reality reveals what was once overlooked. When someone makes the decision to hurt another, whether through betrayal, abandonment, or neglect, they often do so believing they are moving towards something better. Perhaps they feel justified, believing they deserve more, or maybe they assume the connection they left behind was not as valuable as they once thought. But time does not lie. Time forces people to sit with their decisions, to live with the consequences of their actions, and to see clearly what was once clouded by emotion. And when that moment of clarity arrives, regret follows. Regret is a painful teacher. It does not announce itself immediately. It sneaks up in quiet moments, in the loneliness of an empty room, in the absence of someone who once brought warmth, in the realization that a heart once open is now closed. The very thing that was once taken for granted suddenly becomes the thing that is missed the most. It is not just about missing a person. It is about missing who they were with that person, the version of themselves that was understood, supported, and valued. The emotional cycle plays out in predictable ways. At first, there is confidence, sometimes even arrogance, in the belief that leaving was the right choice. Then comes the distraction, new experiences, new people, new pursuits, all serving as an attempt to justify the decision. But as the novelty fades, as life slows down, as the reality of what was lost begins to take form, a shift happens. The mind starts revisiting the past, recalling the moments of kindness, the unwavering loyalty, the comfort of knowing someone truly cared. And that is when regret takes hold. But regret alone is not enough. Many people regret, but not all of them change. Some return not because they have learned, but because they seek comfort, because they fear loneliness, because they crave what they once had, but are not willing to give what is required to maintain it. Others, however, return with humility, with an understanding of their mistakes, with a genuine desire to rebuild what they once broke. This is where wisdom comes in. Just because someone regrets does not mean they deserve another chance. Regret is not redemption. It is simply an acknowledgement of past mistakes. The true test is in action, in consistent effort, in the willingness to do what is necessary to repair what was damaged. And for those who have been hurt, the question is not whether someone will come back, but whether their return aligns with your growth, your healing, and your self-worth. People often realize too late the value of what they lost. But for those who were hurt, the power lies in recognizing that your worth was never dependent on someone else's regret. It was always there, waiting for you to see it for yourself. People often walk away from something good because they believe there is something better waiting for them. The idea of greener pastures is seductive. It whispers that the struggles, imperfections, or discomforts of the present can be erased by stepping into something new, something more exciting, something seemingly flawless. But the truth is, the illusion of greener pastures has deceived countless people into abandoning what they should have valued, only to realize too late that what they were searching for was what they had all along. In the moment, dissatisfaction can cloud judgment. Every relationship, every connection, every meaningful bond comes with challenges. The deeper the connection, the more effort it requires. But modern thinking, driven by instant gratification and the illusion of endless options, teaches people that if something becomes difficult, they should walk away. Instead of working through challenges, they convince themselves that somewhere out there is something easier, someone who will require less effort, a situation that won't demand patience, commitment, or sacrifice. But that is an illusion. The reality is that every new beginning eventually reaches the same crossroads, where effort, understanding, and resilience are required. And those who chase the illusion of perfection often find themselves trapped in an endless cycle of running away, never truly finding what they are looking for. The problem is not that better opportunities don't exist, sometimes they do. But the real question is, are people running towards something real, or are they running away from something they simply refuse to nurture? The belief that the grass is greener elsewhere is often built on fantasy, comparison, and unrealistic expectations. What they fail to realize is that grass is green where it is watered, where it is tended to, where it is valued. And those who abandon something simply because they think they can find something better often discover that the new pasture they chased after was nothing more than an illusion, a mirage that disappeared the moment reality set in. People who have lost something truly valuable often reflect on the choices they made. They remember the moments they overlooked, the love they took for granted, the effort someone put in that they dismissed as ordinary. When they step into the world expecting an upgrade, only to find loneliness, disappointment, and superficial connections, the regret becomes overwhelming. They see that what they left behind was not the problem. It was their inability to recognize the worth of what they had. This is why wisdom teaches discernment. Just because something looks appealing does not mean it is meant for you. Just because something is difficult does not mean it is disposable. And just because you have options does not mean they are better than what you already have. The illusion of greener pastures fades when reality sets in, but sometimes, by the time that happens, the door to return has already closed. The lesson here is not to stay in situations that are truly unhealthy or unfulfilling, but rather to recognize that real fulfillment does not come from chasing an illusion. It comes from appreciating, investing in, and nurturing what is real. It comes from understanding that everything of value requires work, and that the happiest people are not those who keep running in search of something better, but those who choose to build, to grow, and to value what is already in their hands. Human relationships are built on an unspoken balance of respect, trust, and mutual understanding. But there are times when this balance is tested, not always consciously, but as part of a deeper psychological pattern that reveals how people perceive power and control. When someone pushes your boundaries, when they hurt you and return as if nothing happened, they are not just making a mistake, they are testing the limits of what you will accept. They are seeing how much power they hold over you, how much they can get away with, and whether their actions will come without consequences. People who test boundaries often do so because they have learned somewhere along the way that they can. They have seen that others have forgiven them too easily, that apologies, whether genuine or not, are enough to reset the dynamic. And so they repeat the pattern. pushing a little further each time, seeing just how much control they truly have. It starts subtly, small acts of disrespect, moments of emotional withdrawal, a lack of consideration. And if these behaviors go unchecked, they escalate. Not because the person necessarily wants to hurt you, but because they are measuring your response, determining how much they can take without losing access to you. But here is the reality. The boundaries you fail to enforce will always be tested again. People do not just respect limits because they should, they respect limits because they are required to. And when you allow someone to return after they have hurt you, without addressing the damage, without making them earn back your trust, you send a message, even if unintentionally. You tell them that your emotions, your self-worth, and your loyalty are negotiable. That they can leave, come back, and still have access to the version of you that once cared without condition. And once that dynamic is established, it becomes incredibly difficult to break. Power in relationships is not about control. It is about mutual respect. It is about knowing your worth and making it clear that certain lines cannot be crossed without consequence. It is about valuing yourself enough to walk away from those who only return when it is convenient for them. A person who truly values you does not test your limits, they respect them. They do not see what they can get away with. They work to maintain your trust. They do not disappear when it suits them, only to return when they feel like it. They stay, they communicate, and they choose to nurture what they have rather than gamble with it. The moment you recognize this, everything changes. You stop entertaining those who come and go as they please. You stop justifying mistreatment under the guise of love. You stop making excuses for people who are only loyal when it serves them. And when you enforce your boundaries, when you refuse to engage in power games, you attract those who are willing to show up with the same respect, effort, and consistency that you bring to the table. The truth is, the people who truly care will never test how much they can hurt you before you break. They will protect your heart, not see how far they can push it. And if someone keeps returning only after they have caused you pain, they are not seeking love, they are seeking control. Your strength lies in knowing the difference and in choosing to never let someone's temporary regret outweigh your permanent self-respect. Growth is often painful, but it is necessary. There comes a point in every person's life when they are forced to reflect, to look back on the choices they made, the people they hurt, and the opportunities they let slip away. Change does not happen in comfort, it happens in discomfort, in moments of loss, in the realization that the way things were is no longer sustainable. For those who have hurt others and walked away, growth often comes when life teaches them that actions have consequences, that good people are not easily replaced, and that selfish decisions eventually demand a price. Perspective is a powerful thing. In the moment, people act on impulse driven by emotion, ego, or short-term desires. They believe they are making the right choice, or they simply don't think far enough ahead to consider the long-term effects of their decisions. But as time passes, as experiences shape them, they begin to see things differently. The person they once took for granted becomes the person they now admire. The love they once overlooked becomes the love they now long for. The stability they once found boring becomes the peace they now crave. This shift in perspective does not come instantly. It comes through experience, through mistakes, through the humbling realization that the grass is not always greener elsewhere. Many who walk away believing they have everything figured out eventually find themselves looking back. They start to understand the effort, patience, and loyalty that was given to them. They see the silent sacrifices that were made, the way they were supported, the love that was freely offered without conditions. And in that moment of realization, regret often follows. But regret alone does not change a person. What changes them is the decision to grow from it, to become someone who no longer repeats the same mistakes, someone who no longer takes people for granted. The challenge, however, is that growth is a choice. Some people learn, and others continue on the same destructive path, repeating the same patterns, hurting the same kinds of people, and making the same excuses. True change requires effort. It requires facing uncomfortable truths about oneself, admitting fault and taking responsibility. It requires breaking old habits, letting go of toxic mindsets, and becoming someone who values what they once neglected. For those who have been hurt, this understanding is crucial. It is easy to believe that when someone returns, they have changed. But real change is not in words. It is in action, in consistency, in the willingness to prove through time and effort that they have truly evolved. Some people come back because they miss comfort, because they fear loneliness, or because they regret losing access to something good. But those who have truly grown come back, not to take, but to rebuild, to earn, to prove through their actions that they are no longer who they once were. Growth is what separates those who learn from their mistakes from those who continue to repeat them. And for those who have been hurt, the greatest power lies in understanding that you are not responsible for someone else's growth. You are responsible for your own. The best thing you can do is not wait for someone to change, but to change yourself, to become stronger, wiser, and more self-respecting. And if someone has truly grown, they will not just say it, they will show it. Because real transformation is not about words. It is about who you choose to become when given a second chance. Loneliness has a way of revealing truths that people try to ignore. In the rush of making decisions, in the heat of impulsive choices, people believe they are certain that they know what they want, that leaving was the right move. But time moves forward, and when the distractions fade, when the noise quiets, they are left alone with their thoughts. And loneliness, when it settles in, is not just the absence of people. It is the absence of meaning, of true connection, of a soul that once stood by them when no one else did. Many who walk away do so thinking that freedom will bring them happiness, that detachment will make life easier. But as time stretches on, a new kind of reality sets in. The relationships they thought they could replace do not hold the same depth. The people they once thought would be better do not provide the same warmth. And then the fear creeps in. The fear that they may have walked away from something irreplaceable. That what they lost was not just a person, but a rare and meaningful bond that they may never find again. Fear of permanence is what drives people to come back. The idea that a door may close forever, that someone who once loved them deeply has finally moved on, is a fear more terrifying than loneliness itself. It is one thing to be alone, but it is another to realize that the person who once waited for you is no longer there, that their heart no longer belongs to you, that they have found peace in a life without you. And this fear, the fear of losing access, the fear of finality, is what pushes many to return. But not all returns are driven by love or realization. Some are fueled by comfort, by the need to know they still have control, by the desperate attempt to undo the damage they caused without fully taking responsibility for it. They want reassurance that if all else fails, they still have you. That if life does not unfold as they expected, they can come back and pick up where they left off. And this is where wisdom is needed, because not everyone who returns does so out of genuine change. Some return because the loneliness became unbearable, not because they have learned to be better. For those who have been hurt, this understanding is crucial. The absence of someone who once meant everything to you can feel like an unbearable weight. But there is a difference between being alone and being lonely. To be alone is a temporary state. To be lonely is to be disconnected from yourself. And the worst thing one can do is to let fear of loneliness drive them back into the arms of someone who only values them when they fear losing them. The greatest lesson is this: those who leave by choice must also live with the consequences of that choice. If they return, it should not be because they fear being alone, but because they truly understand the worth of what they lost. And for those who have been abandoned, the real power lies in knowing that your value does not decrease just because someone else took time to realize it. Strength is in embracing solitude, in using it as a time to grow, to heal, and to rise beyond the need for temporary validation. Because in the end, the one who truly wins is the one who chooses themselves over someone who only comes back when the fear of permanence finally catches up to them.